Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Social Confoes. I'm Diego, together with my co-host Shanluk. Shanluk, how are you doing?
Well, I'm fresh off vacation, but
Yeah, welcome back.
actually
You went
really tired.
to the
I
south, right?
went I went to Belem and Sunnynopolis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sunnynopolis.
I am not. Like, is it a few hours away from Vilam? Like, how
Yeah,
far?
yeah. So you fly to Belem and then you take a drive for 4 hours, 5 hours to the beach to the coast
Oh,
of
that's not too
Para
bad.
of the state of Para.
Is that where the like white sand dunes are? Where?
No, it's really beautiful. There are some dunes. There's also what they call the Coca-Cola Lake, which is kind of like the similar to our Coca-Cola Lake or a creek. And but the beach is really interesting. The beach is interesting because it's a beach that is it's really child friendly in the sense that it's really the tide is when it's low water, it's really low, and the beach is really extensive. So the Sunnylopolis beach, without exaggerating, when it's low tide, it's it might be 200 meters worth of beach, like in the
Oh,
width.
the how much it recedes the water?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that.
like in the width. It's at least the difference between low tide and high tide is at least 100 meters, at least. And the interesting part is that there's a road on the beach. Like if you go to Google Maps, there will be a road that's listed as a road, but you're actually driving on the beach. And the idea is you drive on the beach, the different waterfront restaurants, they put out the tables and the chairs, and you just drive to one of the spots that is free. You reserve tables, you drive your car next to the tables, and you park your car next to the tables on the beach, and that's
Oh, that's an
basically
interesting concept.
yeah. It's a really cool concept. So, and it so basically it's already 50 meters to 100 meters from where you're seated to the actual place where you order. So it's already kind of like for the waiter, it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah,
already
yeah.
a long walk. But
Like,
then it's
do they walk or do they have these little sand?
well, you get like if you order drinks, you kind of get a foam
Or are
box.
they driving like an ATV sometimes?
No. They come up with a foam box and like put all the drinks in a foam box with ice that it stays cool, so you get like your own personal cooler from the restaurant. And the food, which in general in Brazil is good, but the food is at the beach is also really good. Like we ordered some crab the second day we were on the beach, and it was like you get it with a plate, a granite plate, and a uh, wooden hammer to easily chop off the shell. But it's the shell. It's so properly cooked that you can just pull the shell off, and you
Mm.
actually get quality meat. So all in all, it was a very interesting experience.
No, great. Get some fun at least. You've been traveling a lot this year,
Yeah,
but
so it's been quite a lot, and next year might be the same or even more. So I can't complain. The only thing I will complain about is the flight schedules from flights to Suriname. So we're going to
yeah,
talk about the social media conference in a bit, but when we're booking flights now for our speakers, like all the flights are coming like in the morning, like
yeah.
between midnight and 5
Midnight
o'clock in
and
the
5
morning.
a.m.
It's insane. Like, and I do feel we should give Suriname Airways a little bit more credit because they are actually the airline who has reasonable travel and departure times compared to all the other airlines. Like AA comes in after midnight, The
Yeah.
flight from Gaul that we were on comes in after midnight. Copa, which I fly a lot, which is an airline I like, but they also fly at like 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning. It's insane, and yeah, that takes its toll, especially when you're traveling with two young children, 4 and 7. Um, yeah, you can get them to participate a little bit. They have their own trolley, they do their own thing, they help you out. But when they're sleeping, they're sleeping. So when you arrive on your flight, it's
Yeah, you
done.
got extra
Yeah,
luggage.
you got extra luggage, exactly.
Uh, but yeah, coming back to what we're talking about today, why the social media conference is important, and in the context of social media, today is actually my Twitter 10-year anniversary. I just got a
Wow,
notification. Yeah, like 10 years, and I like, is it that been
congrats.
that long already? And
Yeah,
yeah, I had my account in I think 2012, and geez, just
that's
goes to show how long we've been in this social media paradigm.
yeah. I had my account since 2011 as well, so it's been a while. But there's also some kind of, I think it's National NFT Day. Can it be?
There were discussions about that among the communities
Yeah,
about getting a national NFT day. But when you say national, like national where? So I think
yeah,
international,
international.
national.
Well, there
But
are a couple of people saying International NFT Day. Some
yeah,
people are
so
saying
I
National
saw
NFT
the
Day.
conversation pop up a bit around the different
Yeah.
communities, but I don't think it's anything formal or solidified yet.
Okay. Well, for those of you celebrating, happy NFT Day. I haven't been active at all, which is a shame. I should actually check if I got airdropped something today, but yeah, to be honest, I wasn't at all focusing on that because we are busy with the social media conference Suriname, and of course that's the main topic. Because yesterday I dropped a brand new Charlotte SR Weekly on Substack. So, what is your take on Substack?
Uh, I've heard about Substack like about a year, almost 2 years ago. Basically, it's the writer's platform with your own mailing list, curators list. If you want to build, if you're a writer and you want to build a subscription list and email list, Substack is like the no frills attached, just focused on the content and very onboarding friendly for writers. So you have the dashboard, the
It's
data.
better than your personal blog actually. So
Yeah.
that's the confronting thing for me to whether or not. So you have Substack, which is basically replacing Medium because Medium was supposed to be that platform that Substack now is. But Substack just has better subscription. I mean, anybody can subscribe to your blog
Yeah, the
instantly.
focus is very
Yeah,
focused.
yeah,
It's
and I think
very
it
narrow.
helped the Patreon, OnlyFans era kind of helped figure out how how these kind of platforms should be used. So I didn't think that's the main thing that's interesting. But then you also have, of course, LinkedIn published bought Pulse, so you have LinkedIn newsletters now as well, not just the
Um,
blogs, but also LinkedIn newsletters is something that's also new.
what's Pulse exactly?
Pulse is a
I know
publishing platform.
I know LinkedIn introduced this a while ago, but I
Yeah.
didn't read into it much.
Okay,
But
so
was it a separate platform?
Pulse was a publishing platform, and then LinkedIn purchased Pulse, and then in the initial phase, LinkedIn Pulse was like blogging for LinkedIn, but it you had to be invited. You had to officially show that you were a writer in order to
Mm-mm.
get it. And then they kind of went away from that because it wasn't working the way they thought
Of
it
course,
would work.
gatekeeping.
So in the end, everybody now can write a blog post on LinkedIn, but now LinkedIn has also come out with newsletters, so you can create a newsletter connected to your LinkedIn, similar to Twitter. Now having weekly newsletters as well. So as you can like Facebook completely stepped away from notes. Facebook notes used to be a big thing as well.
I've
So
never
it's
heard of it.
yeah. So you see, like for certain platforms, but now everybody is into the subscription based model. So yeah,
But that's basically, if we're talking about software and platforms, a lot of model, especially in the tech space, it's the SaaS model, software as a service, right?
yeah,
And I remember, last year we had from Sasset of Saswat.
yeah.
We talked about this at length about all the platforms offering either you start as a freebie and then you tier the subscriptions with more benefits, more features,
Which
and a
is
lot.
interesting because just sorry to cut you off, but I'm not sure if I ever intend for people to pay for my Substack. Like it feels weird, like
Yeah,
putting out information and I mean, if you're like really consistent and like it makes sense, but if you post like once a week, most of the content out there is free, so you're really competing
yeah, and
heavily.
I don't think the people who really make it, that the intention is to make money off of their content at first glance. It is a either once they start getting an audience that switches. Unless you're very focused, you have a team already. You're kind of in a corporation setting, and then hey, this department you guys spin off something with the
So
intent to generate revenue through that. Yes, but I don't think individual creators,
so here's
most
an
of them start
interesting
off
take.
with that intent.
Here's an interesting take because I shared this post by Mark Schaefer. Mark Schaefer is somebody I look up to a lot. He has written multiple books. One of his favorite books is Known, in which he basically explains, and he recently did it in a blog again, is the idea is not necessarily to become famous. Like it's nice to be famous,
Right.
but it's kind of hard to monetize fame, and it comes with other things that that can make it very difficult for you as well from a business perspective when it comes to fame. Whereas being known is kind of more like understanding, like people know who you are, so you're important to them for certain specific topics. And with known, the idea is also that if you consistently put out content, your personal brand will grow. And because you're known, you will get those gigs, you will get
Right.
invited, you're able to monetize,
Yeah,
which
that's
also means,
your lead generator.
yeah. So, and then there are different approaches. Like he explained, like he didn't go into depth how he does it, but in the comments, when people ask, he explains it a little bit. And then, of course, the other model is the Gary Vaynerchuk model, where you kind of like have a whole team behind it creating the content. Basically, you're like a brand, like a company brand would do it. That you have actually have a team that nurtures that brand online. But the biggest thing that for me has always been a problem is the consistency. Is finding the balance between being able to do that and doing your regular work. So I'm really excited because the reason I mentioned Mark Schaefer is because he's coming to Suriname, of course.
It's official now.
I can officially say it. I mean, it's
Okay.
on the website. The tickets have been booked. The hotel reservations have been made. So I can officially say
Okay,
that Mark
awesome.
Schaefer is coming to Suriname. And yeah, it's one of the biggest names in the marketing industry for the past 30 years.
And you guys
Uh,
gave out a few of his book last year, right?
Yeah, we gave out a couple of his books in 2020. We'll be giving away a couple of his books again. He has a new book out, Cumulative Advantage, which is more from a personal development perspective than more marketing per se. But also he has another new book coming out, I think, in the beginning of next year. And the main book still for the past couple of years has been Marketing Rebellion, where he kind of explains like how we're transitioning from different marketing revolutions to another, from one marketing revolution to another, and what brands are struggling with or dealing with. So in general, just I mean, like I'm excited, like that we can get a speaker here who is like one of the thought leaders when it comes to marketing in general, not just social media, but
Yeah.
marketing in general. Yeah.
So better be there at the social media conference. You got Mark Schaefer.
Mm.
And to bring that into context, you wrote a blog post a few years ago when social media conference started about 7 reasons why people should attend. And you, in your recent Substack post, you kind of revisited that the idea. So let's talk about some of the observations you made. Did anything change? Why should people still attend the social media conference uh,
Okay.
in 2022?
So I came prepared because I'm wearing a social media marketing world T-shirt now. Big shout out to them as well. Big inspiration. Mike Stelzner and his team, Phil Martian, the conference manager, conference director of that conference. And the reason I bring them up is because they're celebrating their 10th social media marketing world next year. And for the past years, 2018, 2019, 2021, we have been part of the volunteers group for that conference. And with we, I'm saying like the ineffable team. So basically, the people that host the conference, the social media conference Suriname, go to volunteer in San Diego. It's at least tenfold our conference, like in size, in admission fee, in volunteers, in speakers, in sessions. Everything is like all most of it's tenfold the size of what you do here. And the first social media marketing world in Suriname was also modeled around the 2014 edition of social media marketing world. And of course, things change. You realize certain things are different in Suriname, in the Caribbean, than they are in the US. So you change those things out of the programming. And what we have seen now is I mentioned in 2016 7 reasons why I thought we needed the conference. And interestingly enough, they're all still relevant. So I think that's the main purpose of the blog post that I put out this week.
Which one would you say they're still relevant? Some of them have increased in relevancy. Which one would you say has changed the most in relevancy? Would you say?
So interestingly enough, I think the role of social media in the world of ICT, and then also
Interesting.
how ICT is defined. And I
Yeah.
mentioned this because like 6 years ago, we were talking about mobile app development and social media apps and how mobile apps would work with social media. And it's gone a completely different direction, I feel, that I originally thought it would go, to be honest. Because now, if we look like, okay, from the tech space, what's most connected to social media? I would say blockchain, the metaverse, which is something that's completely new. Like in 2016, we didn't talk about the metaverse. We barely talked about crypto. We barely talked about blockchain
So
technology.
in that context, in that broad context, let's say like what how would you describe or define ICT in 2022? What should we consider?
So you have different directions. Yeah, it's a big side because you have Internet of Things, which is completely different direction. It's more high level appliances, household appliances, company appliances, finding ways to make the internet more integrated with life in general, like any form of life. So that's already one side. Then you have the blockchain side, which is completely different as well. Um, I think it's the ICT space because you still have security, which is a completely different topic. Decentralized finance would fall mostly under blockchain or is connected mostly under blockchain, but is technically something completely separate as well. Um, so, and then
So yeah,
mobile development is also completely different from blockchain because blockchain is still like a lot of blockchain is not mobile centric at all. And then you have e-commerce. E-commerce is a whole different ball game as well. That's completely mobile centric. So it's really hard to say like, okay, it's actually gotten harder to define what ICT entails because
yeah.
I haven't even talked about the difference between software and hardware and how to deal with that.
So So I would describe it, if you interact with it through a screen technologically, I would consider it under the world of ICT.
Um, okay, even if it's not connected to the internet, or should
Yeah.
that be a criteria as well?
Uh, yeah, I would include the internet in this one because you interact with the
Yeah,
screen
yeah,
within a broader network.
yeah. So it's really, really broad,
Yeah.
which makes it even harder to find what the role is for social media in the ICT landscape.
So we've covered in the past year different themes. E-commerce was one of them that was very prevalent. The transition from the traditional offline media to online media, and especially last year, moving into this year, you mentioned it a lot. Blockchain, metaverse stuff has become more mainstream. And yes, if you remove the financial component from it, there is a lot of technological developments happening there. Especially, we are kind of actually already in a metaverse. It's just, I would describe it like this: that the metaverse is just getting more fidelity. It's getting more
Let's take a
visceral.
concrete example. I saw a post today that Polygon and Starbucks are gonna work together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Starbucks is
I know that news.
saying we're gonna put our loyalty system on
It's
the blockchain.
basically a loyalty system that they're
Yeah,
kind of you're so when I read into it, and I checked out a few podcasts, and they broke it down very interestingly. So yes, you have the traditional your loyalty programs with any retailer or shop. You buy, you get a voucher. If you buy X amount, you can claim a free, or you get a certain discount. And they're putting this on the Polygon blockchain now, or attempting to put it on there. And it's quite interesting because they sell these so-called Starbucks credits, and you kind of put your money in Starbucks like a bank, whereas
listen, if you want to invest in Starbucks, buy actual stake. Like go to the stock market and buy
yeah,
stocks.
yeah. So
Like
it
people
was
like
very convoluted
yeah,
how they
no,
broke it
people
down.
have to understand like a loyalty system, traditionally speaking, is never been about making money. It's
Yeah,
about showing your loyalty to a company. So if you go out there and buy Starbucks NFT like crazy,
but
hoping they
that
will
that
move and
that's
you'll lose money, that's your own fault. Let's
here's the
clarify
thing.
that.
Here's the
Yeah,
interesting thing. We're
yeah,
talking about the role of social media and all this,
yeah.
and the narrative around NFTs, especially in the past 2 years, has been very financially driven. And if a company like Starbucks comes with this now, you're gonna draw a different crowd. So how would you see the role of social media fulfilling, telling that narrative, shifting away from that financially
Well,
driven?
eventually all markets mature, right?
Yeah,
Like the whole thing with the Wolf of Wall Streets and the penny stocks, it was also there because people were not
yeah.
familiar with buying stocks and understanding stocks and listen to every single story that could make them money. So it's like and this is also with traditional media. I've mentioned this a couple of times. Like people now growing up wanting to be a YouTuber, it's not really that different from people growing up in the 90s wanting to become an actor, like a Leonardo DiCaprio or
Celebrity.
something. A
You,
celebrity. I mean,
you're known.
it's no, it's famous. Like it's very very similar. And maybe the only difference is traditionally speaking, well, traditionally 20, 30 years ago, you wanted to be famous because of the fame and the perks it would get and the lifestyle it would get. Whereas now, people want the fame because they want to be able to monetize the fame. So it's like I'm not, really generalizing here, but that's maybe the major difference between this generation of teenagers, and back in the 90s when I was a teenager. So if but the same goes from like all media platforms. Like people were saying like, yeah, radio is gonna die. People are not gonna stand next to a cubicle and listen all day. And it was like, yeah, television is just a fad. It's not gonna work. People won't be wasting their time hours in front of a box. And then yeah, the internet probably is gonna be a fad in the end, So it gradually shifts, and that's when social media came. And the same with blockchain. Like for a lot of people now, blockchain is still a fad, but then it's gonna become mainstream, and then it's gonna and a couple of people who are very big in the Web3 space are like,
I want to
yeah,
interject
this is
before you
yeah.
go on
Go
with
ahead,
this
go ahead,
point, real quick. You're talking about mainstream. So, did you know what happened last week?
go ahead, go ahead.
It's basically one of the, if not the biggest event so far, singular event so far in blockchain crypto history happened last week.
Oh, you're not talking about HighFest, I guess. No, just kidding.
The merge, the Ethereum merge happened
Oh, the
last
Ethereum
week.
merge. Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
And yeah, if we're talking about the how
I
known it
thought you
is,
were
how
talking about
oh
an event
yeah,
that people
it
would
was an
attend.
actual event. Like
It was an
uh,
actual event. People went to the merge.
it happened. People were following it. There were live streams following it, and
No, okay, I mean like a
yeah,
physical event. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the relevance of this event was either gonna make or break how the landscape functions, and it happened as if nothing happened. So if we're talking about mainstream, it's only the people who
It's
are
far.
in this space know about it. It's way far from mainstream, I would say,
NFT
because it just happened
sales on OpenSea
seamlessly.
dropped with like 70 or more than 70% over the past
Yeah,
week. Yeah.
as the NFTs aside, but did this event just prove if a big technological change happens in the background without anything going wrong, people don't even know it. But if it went wrong somewhere, you should it would have been all over social media.
No, well, here's yeah, also, but I don't think it's necessarily that went wrong. We're really pretty much in 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 the dip phase when it comes to cryptocurrency. So then the interest just drops, and we haven't reached the tipping point where it's gonna come mainstream. It's just not there yet, and that's why we still have to understand we're really in the early phases of where this is going, and that's the point that I was going to make. Like a lot of people in the Web3 industry were like, yeah, but this whole Polygon Starbucks thing is boring. I mean, you could do it the traditional way. Have
Yeah,
you thought about the difference of doing this public? Is it actually a good thing that they're doing this public? Like people will now know who the customers are, who are most loyal to. Those kind of things are not talked about enough. But on the other side, it's a really big thing because this is actually a step towards
adoption.
actually adoption and yeah, making it mainstream. So I think people underestimate it. And if I look at it from like a business perspective, that's really where I would go for. Like NFTs
Mm,
starting off making it as a loyalty system. If I would advise a client of mine to start with NFTs, it would be basically a loyalty system. It would be exactly this. So I can understand people's disappointment because they are like, yeah, but we want to have the whole. But that's, I think, also the discussion between the NFT maxis and the crypto maxis. One saying like it should be decentralized, and the other saying like, I don't really care about that.
right. What I just really quickly looked up. So they also released in NFT like a consensus for the merge, which people can claim, and 320,000 of these NFTs were claimed. So 320,000, would you
Which
say,
essentially is still
is
not
nothing?
that much.
Yeah, it's
Like
nothing.
like you said, this is the biggest event. Like this is the biggest event in all of You
Yeah,
know, like in the whole world. Like it's a one-off thing. It's just gonna be done once in so many years. Um, so I find it interesting. But let's head on to the other points that
right.
were discussed in the blog post. So quickly, we discussed the role of social media in the world of ICT. The first topic the first point that I mentioned was the growing impact of social media in the media landscape, and I think this has aged pretty well, if you ask me.
So if you're talking about media landscape, should I think like productions, content
I
creation?
think 6 years ago, I looked at it from the media landscape from traditional media towards social media, like uh, television, radio, newspaper, printed media, from printed media going from magazines to billboards. But
Which of these, like video, audio, or written form, would you say has had the biggest impact or influence on the space?
it's not fair to say because you have to understand that the written media has had an edge since the 90s. Like when the internet came about, one of the first things that happened were blogs. And there were all of a sudden these people that were blogging and giving out information that was different from the information that traditional news outlets put out. So this is also a very big discussion within the community of writers, especially news journalists, because many journalists feel that a lot of online journalists aren't real journalists because they don't do the same research and the same background check. They don't have
To
their
counter
articles
that
vetted.
point, are many offline journalists actually
Yeah, so
journalists?
that's where it really becomes terrible because that whole check, the necessity for that, it kind of because people want to put out news so quickly that you basically even in the offline scene you now have kind of like the networks that really provide quality news versus like the first in first out kind of news sources to even the trolling. I think the trolling is the most difficult one to deal with from a societal perspective. Like
Right.
people now put out tweets and they kind of quote something that's never been said, and then they very subtly hint it, like in the source. So if you're sharp and you read the source and you're like, yeah, okay, this is a joke. But if you don't properly read the source and you find it plausible, you might actually just share a troll tweet, and you actually help send out fake news and you don't even know yet you're putting out fake news and people are confronting with you put out fake news and you're saying no, I don't do those kind of things. I'm very respectful and I have a very respectful opinion. I would never put out fake news, but meanwhile you just retweeted a troll tweet, you know. So these kind of things are really hard to dissect, if you ask me.
All right. The next one is
So, but
diversification of
yeah,
social.
but before we get to the diversification, what I mentioned in this week's article is like if you just look at like the sponsors like YouTube TV, Oculus, Facebook, TikTok, the events that they sponsor and the things that they sponsor and put sponsorship money into, like in traditional media, those used to be things that um, the, the big Fortune
Yeah, the
500 companies
big networks. But
used to sponsor.
to be fair,
Yeah.
these companies are the big Fortune 500 companies
Yeah,
now.
but even like the Staples Center is now what is it called now? Is it the FTX Arena? I'm not sure
That's
actually.
Miami. That's Miami.
The FTX Arena of Miami.
Yeah,
What
that's
is the
Miami.
Staples Center called now?
Ah, I'm not sure about the Staples Center, but yeah, FTX bought the stadium in Miami.
FTX bought the American. Oh, Crypto.com. Even. So the Staples Center, which was used to be known as the Staples Center, like one of the main sport venues of Los Angeles, is now called the Crypto.com Arena. I mean, like that kind of gives you an idea, like how the landscape is completely shifted. Like crypto brands now being the official shirt sponsor of big European football clubs, YouTube having an official partnership with the NBA and the WNBA, those kind of things, just to put in perspective, like how the landscape has shifted.
Well, yes, YouTube social media platform, but I won't place the crypto platforms as, because we were drawing a
No,
comparison of
but
traditional
no,
media.
that's
Yeah,
why I didn't mention crypto and FTX in the article. But
yeah.
as we were talking about
In the
ICT in
broader context,
general,
yeah,
in a broader context,
the types of companies that
yeah,
sponsor these types of events and arenas
arenas, venues,
like
all those kind of things. It's
has
completely
been
shifted
overhauled.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. What was that? The last one before we
that
move
was
on
that
to
was the
the
last one too.
diversification.
Yeah,
All right, diversification of social media beyond Facebook. At the start of this episode, I mentioned 10-year anniversary. How long have you been on Facebook? I think for Facebook, it's I think 12. I think I'm in 13 or 14 years now on
I've
Facebook.
been on Facebook for 16 years. I was in Miami in 2006 visiting a friend, a high school friend, and we went out in Miami. And I was, dude, where are you gonna put the pictures? And
Ah, yeah, yes,
he was like on
that was
Facebook.
Facebook
You're
in the
not on
start.
Facebook? And I was like, what? And he's like, dude, how are you not on Facebook? But at that time, like the majority of people on Facebook were
Yeah,
Americans,
students,
were
American
students, were
students,
Americans.
postgraduates.
So we were still on either Hives. If you had relatives in the Netherlands, you would be on Hives. If you studied in the Netherlands, you were on Hives or High Five. I think most of Latin America was on High Five. So those were the main ones. Party Peeps was I think still there, but not really that big. Friendster and Napster in Suriname never really had a very big base. ICQ was huge as a chatting platform, but no Yahoo like social media whatever grew. Orkut was never big in Suriname. Neither was, let me see. Yeah, those were the in the beginning. I think those were the main platforms. And 2006, Facebook was a very different space. You
Yeah,
could send
like
drinks to
most
people. You could poke people. You had your own page,
the poke chains
but there
or
was
this.
no timeline. Like Pimp Your Timeline was something of 2011, I think. Like the timeline became a thing 2010, 2011, and there was also no like button. I think in 2008 or 2009, the like button was introduced.
Yeah, I was about to say when I joined, the like button was already there.
Yeah, but in 2006 it wasn't.
Yeah, so it's probably 2008 or 2009.
So
That's
just
the
imagine
area. Yeah.
Facebook without a like button. Like you wouldn't be able to imagine that.
All right. But coming back to, Facebook is, I'd say, the staple now, the benchmark, kind of the biggest one that
Well,
has
they
left
just
its
try to
mark.
destroy everybody that competes with them.
Yeah, that has left its mark in the past two
Yeah.
decades. And
So they haven't been able to completely destroy, for instance, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Like it should be noted that they tried to destroy,
yeah,
competitively, completely destroy
it's either
all of them,
they,
but they
acquire
haven't
them
managed.
or just copy the
Yeah,
features.
it's acquire or destruct. That's basically the Facebook model. It's acquire or destruct, and actually Twitter has enough. I think what makes Twitter great is still the quickness of Twitter, the short uh, messages, which you just cannot. It's really hard to replicate that. Just to
Yeah,
be honest,
aside
it's
from
really hard
that,
to.
it's also the brand or the trust. Yeah, I say trust with a grain of salt that Twitter has built over the years. Like people expect, fast news when there's important events happening. It usually circulates through Twitter first, so they've
Yeah,
come to
Twitter Spaces.
expect that.
So here's the funny thing, because right now everybody's copying everybody. Like YouTube is
Right.
now in YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts is just trying to completely destroy TikTok. That's the main goal. Like how Instagram kind of destroyed Fine at the time. And Fine used to be a product of Twitter, was the short video, like the popular short video app, and it was Twitter based, but then was completely wrecked by Instagram video. And then so basically YouTube Shorts is kind of trying to do that with TikTok as well, which is YouTube Shorts is way more successful than any kind of short video format that Facebook has ever tried to produce. So that's the thing. Facebook has tried to produce all these things that other platforms have, some successfully, some not so successfully. The most recent example is Clubhouse. Like um, Facebook tried
Clubhouse, yeah.
Facebook tried destroying Clubhouse, but actually it was Twitter
Yeah.
mainly who destroyed Clubhouse with Twitter Spaces.
But
So you know, so
the the Facebook Spaces thing never really picked
it
up.
never really, it never took off.
It stayed in beta
Yeah,
and
it
it
never
died
took
in
off.
beta.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Right.
experienced this firsthand. So um, a couple of years ago, we were building a new app we're doing together with Raul with Adapt, and we were building an event app. So for Surifesta, there was already an event app. So we basically approached Adapt when they won with Koiri. Koiri was an app which was basically an app where you could list the events that you were gonna go to, and then put them in some sort of agenda. Um, and we actually used that app as the base for the Surifesta app for all the activities in December. So you just don't go on your phone and like, oh, there's a party there, we can do something there, and so on. And we wanted to make it more interactive. So we were like, what if we build the app in such a way that if you check in at the event, you can upload photos on the event, and people that also have the app can see the photos of you at the event. And like as we were discussing and brainstorming on how to build it, Facebook rolled out stories for events. So that's just the
Destroyed.
social media landscape
Yeah.
in a nutshell. Like you have to be really strong and have a really strong user base to compete. And like the people that felt it the most are the people that made Meerkat. Like if you remember, like Periscope was from Twitter, and then Meerkat was its own entity, and those were the two main mobile live streaming apps, the first two big ones. And then YouTube
Periscope.
was like Periscope and Meerkat. Those
Yeah,
were the
Periscope
two
I
like
know, but
the
I'm
real
not familiar with
global, the
Meerkat.
real big global, like talking tens of millions of users. They were the first one in the mobile live streaming space. And then and then unfortunately, YouTube was also saying like, hey, wait a minute, we have live streamed for so long, but people were saying, yeah, but you don't have it for mobile, and it's really hard to get the partner program to get it. But then Facebook came with live, and then basically it was done.
Yeah. All right. So coming
Then
back
was
to the
just done.
diversification, basically, it's very much centered around Facebook, YouTube,
Yeah.
and this is a great opportunity to assess the landscape to where to move. Where does Facebook not have
So
its reach, and where
so
can you
when
park your
Meerkat
stuff?
died down, the company that made Meerkat made House Party, which became really popular because House Party was the place that you could go live without people knowing because you had the Facebook Live, and all those lives were public lives that people can watch what you're doing live. So they made House Party, which was different. It was a private live where you could go with friends and watch things together. It's like a real house party. And then Facebook came with Facebook Rooms. So it's yeah, it's really interesting how they kind of destroyed everything. Um,
All right, I'm looking
and
at the time
uh,
and a few more of the points we need to go. Let's just rapid fire these, I think, four more points to go.
yeah,
And
so shifting advertising budgets from offline to online.
so,
What's your take? What's your take on that?
so traditional advertising. uh, people spend thousands, tens of thousands of units of currency to, yeah, basically make an ad. If it's through TV, it was very expensive and production heavy. And if you look at the transition using social media, that has drastically cut cost and reach, the cost to reach ratio a lot. But I see a shift in that again as well. So we had the shift from, expensive traditional media to almost no cost wide reach media. But now that's shifting again because companies who have shifted completely online are throwing all their budget that was traditional media into productions for online. And it's getting more competitive now uh, to distribute online. So that's kind of the dynamic I've been observing. But I do have a but on this. I do believe that personal brand and coming back to your reference of being known has more leverage than throwing just money in production, unless you have a very targeted algorithm driven strategy. uh, the leveraging your brand and being known can still pay off on a budget.
Yeah, okay. So basically, hard work still pays off. But here's and you're like the I think the biggest difference is that traditionally speaking, you would go on a network, and from a social media perspective, you are the network. So I think that's it's difficult for a brand to understand like, hey, I basically my YouTube channel is like I have my own television channel.
Yeah,
Like
I think I'm not sure who made this reference, but I've heard it somewhere. Basically, every company is also a media company in this age. If you're into cars, heavy
exactly.
equipment, you are also a media company if you uh, participate in social media. Any company that operates on social media is automatically a media company.
So I think the biggest change for me is I wouldn't say like the production is like it's went like this and now it's going like this again in the sense that social media productions are now sometimes just as expensive as traditional media
Sometimes even more.
productions, even more. Like the best example that you can give is like
Mr. Beast.
yeah, Mr. Beast or Jason Derulo and Will Smith spending like $100,000 worth of camera equipment and resources to make TikTok videos. You know, like that's kind of like Mr. Beast is probably the best example to put millions of dollars in just productions for YouTube. But from a media placement perspective, I think social media is more interesting, more intriguing.
Yeah, of course, we're moving in a one-way street technologically wise, so we got to adapt our.
But then to a point as well that you don't reach certain audiences on certain platforms as well.
This
So
comes
that's
back to
one
the
of the
point of
things.
diversification. Sorry, I didn't catch that
Yeah,
last
I
thing you
think
said.
cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm quickly gonna go on to the next part. Is that like you have like the traditionally schooled marketeers that have to adapt to the online space and the social media space, but then you also have like 20-year-olds who have never learned basic marketing principles that just want to put out fun content without actually thinking of what are brand values, how does branding work, how does PR work, how does marketing work, what are the four basic P's, what are the seven P's, why are the four basic P's still important in social media terms? Because if you're not familiar
If
with
you're not
product
familiar
placement,
with those seven P's, go back to the episode of Rowan Smith back last
exactly.
year.
Exactly. So basically, and then the whole thing about yeah, but education is no longer important. Like it really depends on the context. It really depends on the context. Like you could be amazing in getting followers, but if you don't know how to use social media,
I think you're getting
Yeah,
cut off again, Jean-Luc.
yeah.
Uh,
You
you are
you
saying
could be
it's
amazing in getting followers and having a million followers, but if you don't know how to monetize your following or how to create a community, basically you're back to square one as well.
in that case, you partner up or hire someone who can actually pull it off
Yeah,
and
but you have
leverage
to
your
understand first. Yeah, you have to be self-aware enough to understand, like, hey, there's a certain skill set that I'm missing. And
true.
like, you could either have people that understand it, who understand, like, hey, you understand business and marketing. Hey, you understand how to gain attraction and following. Let's merge, let's work together. Or you have those that totally don't understand the field of social media, but don't accept it, and those that completely don't understand the world of marketing, but don't accept it. And yeah, you have to be aware where you are and how much of it you understand in order to be able to identify as well partners that will help you go forward.
Yeah, totally agree there. That self-realization, self-awareness is important to concede that part. All right, then we have moving on um, to understand the battle between social media consumption and production. And
This
we
has to be
talked
my favorite.
we talked about this I think last week or 2 weeks ago on not last week but a few weeks ago on the TikTok scenario, why it is relevant to go onto TikTok, and this is the consumption versus production dynamic, right? And because not many people produce but there's a lot of consumers there, so basic supply and demand, production and consumption, that dynamic plays into it. So leverage the platform with less producers to be seen more.
I have a question for you. If you play Gods Unchained and you stream it on Twitch, are you producing or consuming?
You're a producer.
Okay. If you don't stream it, are you a consumer or a producer?
You're a consumer of the thing you're playing. But if you stream it, you're a producer of the content you're creating. So it's two different things. One, you're a consumer of the game, the product. That's one. But by streaming it, you create another product, which is entertainment or information for a different type of audience watching you play or interact with that product. So then you become a producer for that platform on another platform like Twitch. Are you still with us, Jean-Luc? While we wait for Jean-Luc to reconnect, hey, Shamil, welcome to the chat. And he's saying we adapt by creatively learning something new. True. This landscape, I would say, it's you gotta continuously learn and adapt because the space is ever changing. You cannot adhere to the same algorithm, the same paradigms that you thought, what worked last year, because the algorithms on the platforms are also changing, right? Look at YouTube, for example. It is very algorithm based. All those thumbnails you see, like with the people's reactions, their faces, surprised, scared looks, it's been designed that way because that's what the data has shown where people click on. And that's why you see all these thumbnails now. Like creating YouTube thumbnails has become an art. And top creators spend hours, even sometimes even more times, on creating the right thumbnail and creating the right title than actually producing the content itself. So that's quite interesting. And let's see if I can get in touch with Jean-Luc. Chris, are you back?
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're on a mobile hotspot, I assume.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not. I actually shifted because the mobile hotspot wasn't working good enough.
Yeah, I was just commenting on like the you have to adapt continuously and creatively, and I was mentioning the YouTube example on thumbnails. Some creators, top creators, actually spend more time on thumbnails, hours on thumbnails and
Yeah,
titles, because you got to adapt to the algorithm than actually producing the content. So it's a very interesting dynamic that's going on the platform. So you need to really, really
I
continuously learn and adapt.
I don't know if you follow Pat Flynn, but Pat Flynn put out some quality content this week on explaining why he removed 3 minutes of his video from a video of 5 or 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting.
What was the thing he removed, and what
So
was the impact?
I would no, so I'm not gonna give away the whole gimme because of course it's prime content. So if you want to know more about it, you should follow Pat Flynn. But mainly what the idea was that he found out that a certain portion of his YouTube video, which had already seen millions of views, was no longer relevant. So he cut it out. So
Okay.
this is like real optimization of your content. That's
Yeah.
saying like, okay, this part of my YouTube video is no longer relevant, so I'm gonna cut it out to give a better viewing experience. You know how extreme that is, how far optimized you're going when you're doing these kind of things. It's like the thumbnail stuff that you mentioned. It's like I basically stopped at the name of the video. Like that's where I have most of my discussions at the moment.
Yeah.
Saying like,
Like
hey, listen, work on the name of the video because the name of the video is gonna help you get more viewers.
I know like Graham Stephan, for example, he talked about this
Yeah.
in a few of his podcasts. They will spend they create like three titles, three thumbnails at least, and they have it ready. And then they will analyze the first 10 minutes after publish what happens. And if they see that doesn't get the usual engagement, they will swap out the thumbnail or title appropriately and see a shift in the engagement to work with the algorithm. So it's an art form on its own, like.
But like and this is where I want to go back to the example of comparing YouTubers to actors and influencers to celebrities. Like there were a lot of people in the 90s who wanted to become actors but never became actors. Some of them became directors, some of them became cinematographers, some of them became editors, special effects specialists, some of them became wardrobe specialists, some of them became acting coaches. So, like in the spectrum of movies, there's so many roles and jobs. And basically, it's the same for social media and content production. Like the person in front of the camera is just one person. There are like 20 people behind the camera who all have full-time jobs, who get paid quite well to do the work that they do. So I think if we put that in perspective, that gives us a much broader sense of like how much work is actually being, how many jobs are actually going being created in this field and in the creative industry. And once you understand that, then it really becomes interesting into what the next steps will be, what the new kind of creative jobs will be. And I think we're not that much aware of it yet from both sides. One from the company side that hey, we have to hire more creative people to create content for our company because the person that is the marketing manager is not the person that needs to do that. The person that's the marketing manager needs to oversee the marketing.
And actually pay them.
Yeah, and you actually have to pay for creators. So that's the first step. And then the second step that people that are aspiring creators have to understand like some aspiring creators are actually better off doing something in the industry different from them being in front of the camera. But it's always the idea that only the YouTuber gets paid. But like there are people working for Mr. Beast who get paid good salaries and never get in front of the camera. I think that's for me the main takeaway.
Yeah, one last example before we go on. I know, like for example, there's some Twitch streamers. They stream like 8 10 hours a day, and then they pay someone. They have an employee who takes clips from them stream and puts it on YouTube, and their responsibility is managing the YouTube channel, and they get a cut of that monetization. So there are different models you can approach, but you need to, make it business worthy. All right. What else did we not touch on yet as we
Oh,
wrap
the
up?
last part, why you have to be at the conference is, I think, the networking opportunities, of course. I think that's the main one. Like, there are a lot of serendipitous moments at the event, and I think that makes the event so great. Is that there are so many opportunities to connect with people, but there are projects that have been a result of people that met up during the conference and got to know each other, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a company, whether it's a participant, a student, a speaker. There are a lot of opportunities that come from going to these conferences. That's also one of the reasons that I continue to go to San Diego every year. And to be honest, I far from make the most out of those opportunities.
Yeah,
I'm
same here.
really terrible in those kind of
To
situations.
to quote a D-Rock a bit, like when you
Yeah,
go to these events, like hard work and intent play a huge role in serendipity, and
yeah,
go, you know, do your work, but have a clear intentions of what you want to achieve during the conference, and actually make use of it when that moment actually happens.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to even want to talk about it. When I think of I mean, I really have to send out a message to Bo, for instance, because Bo really like recently somebody reached out to me like, hey, I was in a space or something with Bo, and Bo said Shaluk is also doing crypto, so I have to check him out. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So I really have to follow up better. I think that's one of the things that
Yeah, you and me both.
for me is
But
still one of the hardest things.
definitely being in person at a conference is something you should experience. I don't think we have, aside from that, there's one other topic I wanted to bring up, but we don't have time for it. We'll shelve it on for another episode. That was around social media as well, but more on the censorship part.
You really wanna go
I,
that direction, I guess.
I
Okay.
I do, but
Uh,
not for this episode. So let's wrap this one up for the social media conference. Anything people should still know. If you haven't read the article, check out Jean-Luc's Substack,
yeah. So I put it here,
jeanluc.substack.com.
salukasr.substack.com. That's basically my new blog page. I will return to my website, but for different purposes. So if you want to get a weekly update, just subscribe to my Substack, and you will get a weekly update. And yeah, go to socialmedia.sr. Let's create another banner for that one.
While you
Social
create that
media.
banner, there's a
Yeah.
question here. Will Jean-Luc announce his book at the conference? Do you have an update for Shamil?
Ooh, tough one. No, I will announce the book, but it won't be available for pre-order yet. I will most likely pitch something else, is in the sense that if people are interested in the book, that they can get like a premium involvement, that they can get updates before others get one. But as of now, currently, I've postponed my book launch to next year, and there's a good reason for that, Shamil. My mother has put out a book, and I want to spend a little bit more attention to my mother's book. And there can only be one Christmas present, so she beat me to the punch, and we'll be focusing on the Alakondre Dragon Girl. That will be the book that I will be focusing on promoting for the next couple of months.
Awesome. You've heard it here first. With that being said, thank you for tuning in. Episodes are being batched up to be released on the weekends. Uh, and yeah, trying to, I'm going to experiment with a different publishing schedule just to see what happens. But the regular weekly releases will be released. But if you missed one of the previous episodes, you can always fall back on either my YouTube in the archive, subscribe there, and you won't miss the weekly live raw sessions. But the post produced will end up on the website eventually.
That being said, this was Social Confoes, Diego. Thank you so much. And as always, see you back next week, same place, same time. Bye bye.
Cheers.